call to order the February meeting of the White Bear Lake Conservation District. We have a quorum. We've called to order, so we're on to item 3 on the agenda, which is approval of agenda. Does anybody have any changes they'd like to make to the agenda? Okay, I'll make a motion we approve it.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Nay. Opposed, same sign. Okay, that passes. So next item is approval of the January board minutes, meeting minutes. Does anybody have any or corrections to the January minutes? Okay. I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, that's approved. Okay, we're on to item 5, which are public comments. And this is a time where we allow 15 minutes for folks to come up and talk about things that are not on the agenda. And I think we have 2 people here, so if one of you wants to come up, we'll just cut the time, split it in 2, so 7.5, 7.5. Okay. Just come up and state your name, address for the record.
Brian McGoldrick, 36 Moonlight Bay, Stillwater, Minnesota. I own docks of White Bear Lake, attend the White Bear Shopping Center. I've asked Dr. Megan Funke, who's here tonight, and Stu Grubbs, hydrologist, to talk a little bit about some of the water quality questions that came up that was a concern with my permit last month. 10 years ago, I did an EAW with the DNR for 300 boat slips. We put the brakes on, and the reason we put the brakes on is the water level dropped dramatically. And at that point in time, the board had a policy, and the policy was you paid for whatever your permit was for. And then partly, a few years later, the city worked something out where you only had to pay for what you did. So once the water level returned, we restarted the process with the DNR. Last year, we've got a 5-year permit for 260 boat slips. And then we came into the district and got approved for 250 rental slips. And I was not at the meeting last month. I had some personal issues I was dealing with. And I sent my attorney only so there wasn't an open chair, that there was any questions or concerns. And it took me by surprise because I had not been aware of any concern anyone had about my marina or traffic at my marina or any water quality. I didn't hear from the DNR. I never heard from the board, and we weren't prepared to respond to that. So I'm going to ask 2 experts to come up and hopefully fill in some of the blanks and relieve some concerns. And what I'll be asking for in an email to everybody is hopefully to reconsider my permit with the information at hand. Maybe we can pump the brakes a little bit, give everyone the same as last year, and take a year and figure out a lot of these things, be it spacing with docks, is it by linear frontage, is it by water depth, and have some hard facts to go off of. I think we do it one time and then we're done. The recommendation is by linear frontage. Whatever it is, we'll go along with as long as we have the same benefits to other people. Thank you for your time.
Hi, I'm Stu Grubb. I'm a hydrologist with Emmons & Olivier Resources. My address is 6677 Jasmine Court in Grant. And as Brian mentioned, he asked me to be here tonight to add some clarity to some of the things that have been discussed in some of the previous meetings. Particularly, I just wanted to mention the 2005 summer lake use study for White Bear Lake, which is here. It was actually part of a 6-year effort. There were studies done in 1999, 2002, and then 2005. And those studies did not look at water quality at all. They just looked at lake use in terms of how many boats were on the water and what kind of structures were on the shores of the lake. They came up with 11 recommendations, and they included things such as having a 300-foot quiet buffer around the edge of the lake that would be demarked by buoys, having a 2-year moratorium on new marinas, ramps, and moorings. Of course, that was back in the early 2000s that they had that 2-year moratorium. Then doing ongoing surveys and studies. They recommended every 2 years with a summary or a full report done every 6 years. And then also boat dock management. One of the final conclusions or recommendations that they had was recommendation number 11 in here. And if I could just read what that said, was that boat storage and boat structures on the lake should be restrained or managed on some rational basis, and the key word there is rational basis. The trends of increasing dock size, complexity, and structures, as well as increasing numbers of boats stored in riparian lots, multiple docks and commercial areas call for comprehensive evaluation. There again, we think the comprehensive evaluation is important. This evaluation can be incorporated into the annual shoreline inventory. This was completed in 2005, 15 years ago, so it's obviously somewhat out of date, and a lot has happened since then with rising and falling water levels and different types of use that occur on the lake. Since that time, most of the studies that have been done on the lake have dealt more with aquatic invasive species, and then, of course, work that was done by the U.S. Geological Survey that had to do with hydrology of the lake, and particularly groundwater and surface water interactions. I do want Dr. Megan Funke here to come up and briefly describe some of the data and things that are available to describe water quality.
Megan Funke. I'm a lake scientist and water resources engineer. My address is 5004 202nd Street North in Forest Lake. And very briefly, given the time, so in the West Bay of White Bear Lake, there has been water quality data collected in the open part that can be looked at by the district and any impacts of the boat traffic. And this has been phosphorus, which is a nutrient or fertilizer that fuels the algae growth. And they measure algae, which is the how productive the lake is, which impacts basically how deep you can see in the water, which is important for recreation and the fish. So that data has been collected in the West Bay since 2005, almost every year, and would be available to use in some sort of comprehensive assessment. Thank you.
Could you talk about turbidity?
Yes, so I think the mechanism by which boat activity impacts water quality can be both described in terms of turbidity, which is just the immediate disturbance of the lake sediments by the boat motors, and then also more longer term effect throughout the growing season by any phosphorus that may get stirred up and then mixed into the water and have a longer lasting effect on the amount of algae that grows. So there are some research studies that look at boat activity on lake water quality, but those are older and can be used to look at how boat traffic in the West Bay of White Bear Lake might be impacting the water quality that is observed.
Okay. And we have a minute. Would you mind taking questions?
Yes,
Okay.
sure.
So I'll start real quick. So the water quality data that's available, does it include things like gasoline, oil, things that you might expect in a bay like this where there are lots of boats?
So when I say water quality, I'm referring to how the state looks at lake water quality, which is related to algae levels and clarity.
So that data is not available, maybe?
There's different parameters. I'm not sure what's in the West Bay, but what I saw primarily is the phosphorus, chlorophyll, and
Kind of
psyche depth.
typical parameters.
Typical parameters, yeah.
And then would it be reasonable, and I know sometimes things seem intuitively obvious and they're not, would it be reasonable to think that as the number of boats in Commercial Bay increases, that the likelihood of pollutants, maybe not just the traditional ones, but others might increase?
In terms of, and I think one of the hard parts in why studies aren't super definitive, it depends on, the type of boat it is, their maintenance, especially with just, turbidity or the actual boat, the motor activity, its speed, it's the depth of water. But typically those aren't the pollutants of concern when we're talking lake water quality and the recreation of the lake as a whole.
Sure. And to that point, I guess shallow areas more susceptible than deeper areas.
Correct. The water is shallower, and so and I think as people drive their boats, they instinctively go slower, just with that knowledge that they're closer to the lake bottom.
Sure.
But the near shore effects can be different than what you observe out in the open part of the lake, where you kind of see the cumulative impacts
Sure.
of lake use.
Yeah, but it might be reasonable. 1,000 boats worse than a boat, a single boat.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
Okay. Anybody else have anything? All right, thanks for coming out.
Good evening. My name is Gary Bauman. I live in the city of Grant. But it seems like everybody from Grant's here tonight.
Yeah.
I wanted to give you a little information. In 1941, augmentation, there was a study done for White Bear Lake to fill it up. It comes from Rice Creek Watershed District, because Rice Creek's up there. It drains into the Mississippi. Half a mile down, it's sucked in from pipes for the St. Paul Water Department. Back then, there was a study done to put a pipe straight down 61 in that. I still got some of the stuff at home that was done, but then a thing called World War II broke out. 1946, one of the highest levels that was ever recorded for the water level on the lake. It come back and White Bear Lake was asked to pay for this. They didn't want to do it. They didn't want to pay for it. And now I see all these stories. There's going to be $50 million built here, augmentation from the St. Paul Water Department and all that. But in 1977, I was not too far from here where the Secretary of the Interior was here, and we're discussing in 1977 about the lake level and how it was going to go down, and he predicted at the time with the studies it was 2025 you were going to start seeing it. Well, and from everything that goes on, it's exacerbated more, and it started 10 years ago where they started noticing it. 1980s, in the late 80s, there was a little testosterone going on between Maplewood and the St. Paul Water Department with the engineering department. I think Diane Longwell, you came afterwards, but you might know a little bit about this. They took away the water department laying the main and doing all the maintenance and everything, and they wanted to build their own little department over at Maplewood. So they got rid of all the maintenance for the St. Paul Water Department, but the water department decided they were still going to get the water for them. And back then, I was in a meeting like this, I sat there, and they said, we're going to start pumping water out of the ground. Everybody thinks that they get all this water from the Mississippi. No, they started pumping because it's millions of dollars a year cheaper for the chemicals you got to add for groundwater because it's a lot cleaner. It stays at a constant temperature. The pipes are all broken and they're bad. And if it keeps at a same temperature, the pipes don't break as much where they're getting it out of badness and that it does. So they started pumping a lot that was going on back then. Okay, we come up to this Matamidi school that they put in, and we had a lawyer there that the numbers started getting shown out, and they were showing them the people, our city council, planning commissioners, and another lady like this scientist was there. And the lawyer at the time just says, I want this when they put the school in, and I get what I want, or I'm going to sue Grant into the ground. And we had to listen to that. Nobody could do anything. The planning commissioner guys, and I think you know a couple of them, the city council members at the time, that Lauren Cedarstrom was one of them. They asked the questions because the same figures that are coming out of Water Gremlin are the same thing coming out of that school. But it's quiet. Nobody's saying a word about that. And the guys that asked the questions, they turned around and gave them, they're called poison letters. That said if they ever stepped foot on Matamidi property, they were going to get thrown in jail. Now, these were the city council guys, planning commissioner, and I think, I hate to pick on you, but you know what's going on. I've been around, I was elected to the Conservation District years and years ago. I was on the Rice Creek Board. I work for the Water Department. I work for PCA. And I think what you guys should be looking at is make sure you're getting a test out there, because trichloroethylene is a chemical that's coming out of the Matamidi schools. It's the same level as what water gremlin is. They're supposed to be getting tested all the time. I'm not sure. I haven't checked into it. And it should be the Conservation District or Rice Creek keep doing the testing of the water that's coming out, that you guys should know. And also, I sat for 2 years with all the engineers coming up and showing us all these great plans to build water, where water was going to get drained in. They did it at Mounds View. They did it at Blaine. They put these big things in where the parking lot, where the water all comes in, it drains in, and filtered, and then they use it for doing the baseball fields and football fields. They put it back on. Great idea. I loved it when it came up. Matamidi, they turned around, they got $8 million to do their parking lot, which because they got some money for the conservation part of it. They didn't put the pumps in because they can't, because of the chemical things that are going on out there. So instead, they just drain it into Lost Lake, which comes right into White Bear Lake. Now, trike, I can grab a cup like that and I can pour, it's clear. And I can pour that into the ground. It'll come in, and it's one of the most cancer-causing products there is out there. The state of Minnesota right now in front, they've got legislation. They're going to ban it. They're not going to do it anymore in the state of Minnesota. It's legislation right now to get rid of that. But I just thought you should know this, what's going on, for your information. And please get it checked out. Get the water quality samples that are going in all the time. And I know this is the part where you guys are going to get all upset, but the lawyer I was telling you about, you guys all love him out here, Steve Wagaman. He's the one that sat there, and he's the one that gave all these guys the letters, the lady from the scientist that explained the numbers for the trike. A lot of people don't know that about him. But as there's 50 of us standing around when he's threatening us, and we're all looking at each other like, what's going on? Why is he threatening us? We couldn't figure it out. And then afterwards, when the people were asking the questions, they get the poison letters. I thank you for letting me speak. Sorry if I took up too much time, but please keep that water checking on there. That's because it's coming into White Bear Lake. Thank you.
Thanks for coming out, Gary, and thanks for the information. Okay, we'll move on to new business. The first,
Mr. Derek Sky didn't get his turn.
oh, I think he's on the LUC agenda.
Wasn't Derek going to have a second? No, you didn't need to talk to him? Okay.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Gary. So new business, first item is City of White Bear zoning, and Sam Crosby. Thank you,
Thank
Sam. Can you
you,
just give us
Chairman.
name, address, all that?
Board members, my name is Samantha Crosby. Oh. Yep, no problem. My name is Samantha Crosby. I'm the zoning coordinator for the city of White Bear Lake, so the address I would give would be here, 4701 Highway 61. I provided copies of a proposed zoning ordinance to Kim in advance. I do have extra copies here in case you didn't get one, or I can leave them.
I think everybody has one in their packet.
Okay. So basically, the reason why we're doing this is, first and foremost, for publicity. These are changes that we think people will want to know about and may have questions or comments about. So we're just trying to get the word out there as much as possible so people have time to process this. And there is quite a bit of time. It's going to the Planning Commission meeting on Monday, but then it has a 2-month process through the City Council. So it'll go to City Council March 10th and then April 14th. So it wouldn't be adopted until sometime in the middle of April. But basically what we're proposing is to limit the size of riprap along the shoreline unless there are significant erosion concerns, and our city engineer could take a look at that and then maybe decide if a larger riprap is warranted, then he could approve it. and also requiring native vegetation in among riprap. So nobody would be able to just do only rock along the shoreline. They would have to have also some native vegetation because they have the deeper roots that hold the soil in place and provide a more ecological transition between the land and the water. And the second part of this proposed amendment is to limit the use of retaining walls within the shore impact zone. And the shore impact zone is half of the structure, whatever the structure setback is, and that varies from lake to lake. But that's that half that's closest to the water, of course. So basically, we're saying that we're trying to preclude the use of retaining walls right in the shore impact zone unless there's a structural need for them. Let's say you've got a really steep slope and some real erosion problems. Our city engineer could take a look at that and then approve the use of a retaining wall. But absent that, we would look for some other sort of solution to the situation. And then, so there's a little graphic on the proposed ordinance here that kind of outlines where and when retaining walls would be allowed. So notice was sent to every property and every riparian owner. It only affects, residents of White Bear Lake. So Diane and Susie and Cameron probably not as concerned. But yeah, if you have questions or comments, I'm here to hear them and maybe answer them or take them into consideration.
I'll start with questions. So would the next step, well, first off, thanks for coming out and giving us the tutorial. I appreciate that. So I guess the next step would be for us to review this and then offer comments to the city if we have any?
Sure, you could do it formally by writing something from the board if you wanted to, or you could just say them to me here now and I can take notes, and because the meeting is on Monday.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
Either way.
Okay, personally, I don't have any comments, sorry.
Yeah.
But anybody else have any questions or comments on this for Sam?
Yeah, now, of course, we're concerned with White Bear Lake, of which maybe, I don't know what percent is, city of White Bear Lake. So the White Bear Lake is, connected with the Rice Creek Watershed District. We're essentially, the headwaters of that. So are you working with them on how this?
Yes, we have notified all of the watershed districts, especially Rice Creek, about this.
Yeah, now this applies to not just White Bear Lake, obviously, but any lake. Does it apply to ponds? What?
It's any DNR lake. So,
okay, it was more than 2.5 acres or whatever their limit is.
I'm not really sure what standard they used back when they established it, but it's a lot of it's Hinners and Preeby and Goose and Birch and White Bear and.
Which are in 3 different watershed districts?
There's one I'm missing, but it's most of our lakes, not our ponds. The other thing that I will mention is that this is not anything that people would have to retrofit to make their properties comply with this code. This code would only apply if you were going to do something along the shoreline. If you were going to change it or touch it or apply for a permit in some way, then you need to meet these. But if you're non-conforming to this proposed ordinance now, you can stay that way for, as long as the improvements live.
Alan?
Thanks, Sam, for bringing this to our attention. 2 questions. First would be whether or not the other cities around the lake are suggesting similar language for their codes. And second, is there an ask of us? Are you going to be looking at us to enforce, ask questions, anything? Since obviously we have a lot of folks that come before the board getting permission to use the water. Mm-hmm. And as you can tell from commercial bay letters that saw yours this week for the city, whether or not there's going to be any sort of joint effort to enforce this.
Great questions, Chair and Mr. Cantrud. No, I do not. This is a solo endeavor. I've not been talking with any of the cities, much less coordinating with them on any similar endeavors. And no, we would not be looking for the White Bear Lake Conservation District to participate in any way, promotionally or enforcement-wise, or really anything. I mean, just getting in front of you is my way of getting the word out to as many different agencies as possible, and that's pretty much the extent of what
And
we're
you might
looking
have
for.
done that since you've got all of the lake cities right here, so they can take that back to their administrators and say, look what White Bear's doing.
Great, yeah, hey, cool if you do. Yeah, sure.
Our board does have some say in this kind of thing. We don't use it much, but the legislation that enacted this board back in 1974 did give us the power to require submission of all plans pertaining or affecting construction or other lakeshore use on any parcel of land abutting the shoreline.
Wow.
So we potentially could have some say. It's
would act-
more of an
yeah.
advisory thing, but this board could, I think, coordinate what you're doing, what the other cities are doing, because we have some responsibility there.
Well, our main goal here is to be as user-friendly as possible. I think that if you ask past applicants that we've worked with who have done projects along the shoreline, maybe the process is a long one, but it's very collaborative between the homeowner and the designer and the city. And but we are trying to avoid terracing or flattening out the natural grade simply for the aesthetic purposes of it. There should be a reason. If you need to build a stair down the lake, or you want to build an accessory structure that's allowed by code, and you need a retaining wall to do it, and you need to reshape the topography of the land to do it, that's one thing. But if you want to just flatten it out because you think it looks nice with no real need, that's what we're trying to avoid here with the retaining wall part of the code.
How about for replacement retaining walls?
We would work with the homeowner to encourage getting closer to code in as much as possible, but we realize that there's a lot of existing conditions out there that are grossly nonconforming and will probably stay very grossly nonconforming, because there's just only so much you can do. And that's why the code is written in a very kind of broad way, because there are practically each 100-foot section of shoreline is different. You can't write a code that covers every possible circumstance. So we've left a lot of room for our city engineer to make determinations.
So if someone is interested in getting a grant to do this on their shoreline, it's available to any of the White Bear residents on the lake?
The grants are through the watershed districts.
Okay.
But yes, I believe every watershed has one.
Okay.
They just vary from district to district.
Okay.
Anything else? All right, thank you, Sam.
Oh, thank you very much for your time. If you have any comments, please, further comments, please let me know.
All right, the next item under new business is talking about the goose population on White Bear Lake. And Lori, would you mind coming up? And I will try to give it an introduction, if that's okay, but you...
Two handouts.
Okay.
Distribute from one of each person. Thank you.
Okay, I'm just going to... Okay, so Lori contacted me and to ask if she could come before the board and talk about the goose population and maybe some control of that on White Bear Lake. And that's what I'll give you, Lori.
Thank you. My name is Lori Futh. I live at 2589 South Shore Boulevard in White Bear Township. And I was here about 20 years ago doing this very same thing. And at that point, just doing this very same thing. And actually, then what I did is go to the 5 municipalities bordering White Bear Lake, appearing before all the city councils, and this plan was implemented in 2000. And it was carried out, and we got money from White Bear Lake, we got money from White Bear Township, we got money from Mahtomedi, the White Bear Lake Homeowners Association, the Lions Club, Ramsey County Parks and Recreation Department, and I'm just going, but those are for sure. In any event, now 20 years has elapsed, and we did it. My husband and myself initiated this program. It wasn't through, we monitored it, we implemented it, and we took care of the billing, and then the cities paid. But I don't think that is the proper protocol. I think it's best done by a governmental agency. And now I see that goose population. We did do it for approximately 4 years, and it was done in conjunction with the DNR and a person by Dr. Jim Cooper. And the University of Minnesota, the DNR is now bowed out of it. It is done under a new program. Jim Cooper is retired, and it's done by a goose management program. And his name is Tom Keefe, and you have a handout from him. And his name and contact information is on one of the pages there. He was hopefully going to be here this evening, but he could not do it because he could more accurately present the data. But in any respect, my husband and myself, we ride along the lake a lot. I think unless you're living in a blind, the geese population is thriving. They have no natural predators. You have all these grassy golf courses, and they have no natural predators, and they are very prolific in their goose droppings. Each goose produces about 2 pounds of goose droppings per day. The city of Shoreview, I contacted them. I've got information, and I've got from Tom Keefe a number of other municipalities. I guess one of the closest ones is the city of Shoreview. I talked to their public works director today and confirmed with him they do it in Turtle Lake, Island Lake, Lake Owasso. What's the 4th lake? Island Lake, Turtle Lake. Anyway, 4 lakes in Shoreview. And he said it's a very successful program. They do it in also some of their city parks to control the goose population. And I think it's very unsightly. I think it's beautiful the way White Bear plants flowers. It's very welcoming. Well, I view White Bear Lake as the crowning glory of this area. That's what people come here for, the lake. That's what it's all about here is White Bear Lake. When you ride through Ramsey County Beach area and you've got the area, and they're hoping to build a bike path or circling the lake someday. I hope that happens. But you go down Lake Avenue and you go through Ramsey County Beach. You go to the Ramsey County Beach. I talked to the lifeguards there last summer, and I said, you know, it's really bad. Your beach is full of geese droppings. And the 2 lifeguards there last summer said, first 2 hours of our day, we come early, and we pick up goose droppings. And I said, what do you do with it? And we throw it in the weeds. So you get a heavy rainfall. Where do you think those goose droppings go? And I think you're all aware, in the summer months, all the beaches throughout the metro area that were closed because of E. coli. So anyway, this goose roundup, it's all approved. It's got the DNR. It's all licensed. And I think the handouts can explain it and not to take up so much time. And also, Tom Keefe has provided the approximate cost for doing it. And it's done in the spring of the year after the geese, they hatch their babies, and then the adults, they are flightless for a period of time while they're molting, and they do a goose roundup. So they herd them into a corral, and they trap them. And they're processed and donated to the food shelf. For the adult geese, the babies, the goslings, are used for pet food. So I think it's, you know what, I mean, some of you, the animal lovers, I mean, this is what I did 20 years ago. People think it's cruel, but the population is just out of control. I'm not trying to eradicate a species. I'm trying to control the population. And I think it's a detraction to the aesthetics of this community when you walk through or you drive through the community and there's goose droppings throughout your parks area. So I guess I can provide contacts as far as other municipalities. I guess Shoreview's doing it. They're very happy with it. And the Public Works, when I spoke with him this morning, he said we had one complaint. He said, I've been here for 5 years, but I think it's been going on for 10 years in the city of Shoreview. So I'd like to you be proactive rather than reactive. And so I'd hate to see it come to White Bear Lake. That Montemita Beach, I mean, I live close to Bel Air Beach, and I see the geese down there in that beach too. So they're throughout the area. Oh, and he also did, Tom Keefe said, White Bear Yacht Club, they also donated to this 20 years ago. But the White Bear Yacht Club also employs Tom Keefe and the Goose Management Program to clean up their goose population over at the White Bear Yacht Club. So that was confirmed to me today too. So I don't know if you have any questions, your handouts, but Tom Keefe's number, his email address, I've got 2 phone numbers for him. So anyway, I'm hoping that this can be enacted again. It was done, like I said, 20 years ago. And so, anyway, anybody have any questions or comments?
You said there were some cost information. Is that
On the
in here?
second page, on the second page at the bottom,
It's on the other one, Scott.
as far as to do a survey as what the goose population is versus what the actual roundup is for a lake of that size. And initially, I'd approached a city staff in the city of White Bear Lake, and he did refer me. He said, that's not something we want to do. You have to go to the Conservation District because they deal with all 5 municipalities.
Right.
And Tom Keefe also said, yes, White Bear Lake could go ahead and do that, but a goose doesn't respect city boundaries, so White Bear Lake does it. It's not dealing, those geese they're in White Bear Township one day and then they're over. And also, just for your information, the geese come back and lay their eggs. They don't necessarily go to Minnetonka one year and then they're over in Shoreview or they're in South Maplewood. They return to their nest, and where they were hatched is where they return to raise their young. And they're very prolific, and that what I handed you explains how prolific they can become over a short period of time. So I think everybody values the aesthetics of the community, and I guess I think I always enjoy the flowers that they plant in White Bear City streets, but I go down to the beach and you've got goose droppings all over. If I had a toddler, if you have young children, you think you'd like to go to the beach and put your 9-month-old, you can't put your 9-month-old on a blanket on a beach here because they're going to crawl off, and a 9-month-old is going to grab and they're going to, and it's really, I think it's a very, very non-aesthetic to see in there. There's just too many. So anyway.
Do they provide any benefit at all to the lake? I mean, I think it's a great idea, but...
So it's been done 20 years ago, and it's a very well-recognized program throughout the metro area, be it Eden Prairie, the city of Minneapolis, Shoreview.
When you went to, or when you contacted the White Bear City Hall, whomever you contacted, did they say they had received complaints regarding the geese? I've never heard of anybody complain about them other than their...
I spoke to Rick about it, and he's the assistant to Ellen, and he said, no, they hadn't received any complaints, but he was also adamant that they would not put any funds to that as well.
The city of White Bear Lake would not. Okay.
That's all. I guess that's all I can say. I mean, I'm hoping that would keep. If Shoreview can do it, why wouldn't? I mean, the aesthetics of your community, I think, is important, and I guess everybody's entitled to their opinion.
Does PETA have a problem with how that's handled with the geese if they're killed? Is that something you have to fight with them as well? Or?
No, I mean, it's the same. It's kind of on the same premise that you do the deer control, where the deer become a hazard and they have to control the population because it's a safety issue about deer. I mean, they do it over at the Tamarack Nature Center where they have to do a controlled shoot to reduce the deer population. I'm not trying to eradicate a species. I'm just trying to control the population. And I think it's not just, I mean, I think anybody has driven down 96 and 4 o'clock in the afternoon and people are stopped because the goose has decided to cross the street right there. And
Yeah, I think we've all had that experience. So, Lori,
So I think you guys have the funding. You're funded through the various municipalities. And, I mean, it was 20 years ago, and that's when I got the support from the cities. And I think everybody's more proactive now, and I think this management program explains how quickly the geese reproduce. And you don't have the hunting. You don't hunt in the metro area. And they've got the perfect storm to reproduce. They've got these beautiful, well-groomed golf courses, schoolyards, parks. So it's the perfect storm for so that they're doing beautifully well.
all right, well, thank you for coming out and educating us on this topic. And this is, it seems like it might be kind of a lake quality issue. So we will take it and read through the material.
Your neighbors to the west in Shoreview are doing it, and and he said, yes, you're more than welcome. And also McCarran's Beach was done last year. Ramsey County will do it. They had to close McCarran's Beach in Ramsey County last year due to an E. coli outbreak. So Ramsey County deals with it when their beaches become infected. So that was again confirmed to me. So it happened at McCarran's Beach, which I think people are aware of that too. So I'd hate to see that happen to White Bear Lake.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to unfinished business, and Alan.
Thank you, Chair. Did we actually pass second reading of the ordinances, or did we waive that last month? I can't remember.
I'm sorry, say that.
Did we waive second reading of the ordinances?
No, we did them at the last meeting. It was our second reading. Yeah, we did that last.
We really need to do then, Board.
Approve the new,
What we're doing tonight is essentially passing summaries of what we passed.
The summary, that's
And
the word.
it's done because state law allows for it, and really it's a cost-saving measure for all of your cities. So they can get the full text, of course, by contacting Kim at the office, but what we need is basically a supermajority vote. The language should be in front of each of you, showing what more or less we did. It's all having to do with buoys, so it's pretty easy to summarize for purposes of publication. And so I would recommend passing those summaries one at a time. Any questions?
Okay, do we have any a motion?
Move to approve.
We have a motion. We have a motion and a second to approve, and I assume, Mark, you're talking about ordinance 2019-01?
Yes.
Okay.
The summary for publication.
That's right. So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
So
Sorry,
I'm
Susie?
sorry. So these are going to be published in the press?
These will be published in the legal newspaper of the district, and once they're published, of course, that's when the ordinances go live.
Okay, and I'm concerned, I guess, that there isn't any description of what is going to be allowed in this.
That's the idea. It's a summary. So it says, hey, we've enacted legislation that affects buoys and similar structures in the lake. And so if you want to have a copy of the full text, it can either be sent in paper form or electronically by the office, or it can just if Kim's in the office, they can actually physically look at it. Okay. So it saves us from having to print the entire ordinance is what it does.
will be on the website as well,
Yeah.
the full version.
Again, motion and a second. Any other questions, discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. So now we're on to the second one, 2019-02 summary. I'll move that we approve.
Second.
We have motion and a second to approve the summary of ordinance 2019-02. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That passes. Thank you, Alan, for helping us through that, and thank you, Scott, for leading the charge.
Yeah, we do have a PDF file that's ready to go up on the web, to our website. I assume from what you said that we can't do that until it's published?
You can certainly put it out there. I mean, it's been passed, and so if someone was, for some unknown reason, cited for that in March, maybe, they have a decent defense, but I would say get it out as soon as you can.
I mean, that would be the reference. I mean, they could just look on the web, right?
Right. So anyway, there's no harm in actually putting it out there. Certainly it'll be law before all of you guys meet again. So, but I suppose belt and suspenders, you can publish it, and as soon as the White Bear, publication comes out, if you want to wait until then, that's fine too. Again, I don't see a whole lot of need for it in February and March, but never know. Ice might be out in a month.
Okay. So we're on to item 8, reports, action items, the executive committee. Okay, so we're on to the final vote for nominations for 2020 board chair, vice chair, and secretary treasurer. The nominations have been open since our last meeting, and so I will ask for additional nominations.
I did not receive any.
Okay, I'll ask once, any additional nominations? Second time, any additional nominations? Third time, any additional nominations? Sorry, Diane. So then, is it a motion?
Mr. Chair, I would, assuming that there's uncontested slots taken up by the nominees, you can just have a motion to move the slate of candidates, second, and approve, and you're done. You might want to read them off, so remind the studio audience.
Are Brian DeSmit for chair, Diane Longville for secretary treasurer, and Mark Gans for vice chair.
Do you want to accept a motion moving the slate then?
Would like to accept a motion.
Second.
I haven't made the motion. I'd just like to accept it if somebody would like to make the motion.
Oh, you don't want to make the motion? Okay,
I
I
do.
make a motion for unanimous slate, approval unanimous slate.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to approve the slate. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That passes. The next item is the resignation of Jeff Rattay, who has resigned his position, and Matamidi is currently looking for a representative for the board. All right. And I'll publicly thank Jeff for his service. He did a great job for the board. Then we're on to the Lake Quality Committee. Mike?
Lake Quality, just a few days after the January meeting, the DNR put out a notice that they were offering grants for the treatment of invasive species. In our case, it's Eurasian water milfoil. So I immediately put everything together, applied for a permit, got approved for a permit to treat, all way ahead of time. And it had to be delivered no sooner than 9 o'clock on January 31st, and no later than sometime in February. The state has about $530,000 to put towards grants, and so it's a first-come, first-served basis. I was gone at that time, but Brian took it upon himself to make sure that it was delivered, hand-delivered, downtown to the DNR at 12 minutes after 9 on January 31st. So he was a little bit late, but, I tried to get there later. But he was assured that the very, very good possibility that we will get a grant. If we get a grant, the maximum that we could get would be $7,000. We'll find out in the coming weeks. I've since gotten emails from the permitting process that our permit was approved, from the grant people that they did receive the grant. Everything was in order. All the materials they needed were in order. And it's just a matter of allocating funds at the time, and that we should know probably by the March meeting if we're eligible to receive the grant. Of course, we have to do the work and everything before you get paid. There's no upfront money. The kind of an odd caveat with the grant is that you can't start anything prior to the grant approval either. So if I initiated some things prior to knowing that we're going to receive a grant, they won't pay for it. So I'm not going to request any bids. I'm not going to do anything until we hear from the grant up or down, which is kind of different, kind of unusual, because usually this time of year we'd be kind of talking to people and getting things going. It does not cover Phragmites, so I can work on that in the meantime. But that's it. Any questions about the grant?
No, but thank you for doing that. It's great.
Okay, any questions for Mike? Okay, thank you, Mike. On to Lake Utilization Committee. Mark?
Chair and Board, I'd like to start off with Mr. Sky. He said, in case there are any questions for the board, has a property on Highway 96 and in between Delwood and the county beach. And it's 60 feet, but he has an adjacent property that has a deed that the deed holder can have 2 boats on his easement or his property.
Hey, Mark, I'm sorry to interrupt. So this item was on the November agenda, maybe?
Correct.
A previous agenda, and so it's not included in the packet.
Correct.
It was tabled.
Sorry, Mark.
Since then, Mr. Sky has been able to remove 1 boat. He has the neighbor's 2, he has his 2, but then he also races an e-boat. If you look at the property, it's not really one set up where he can like just pull the racing boat, the sailboat off onto the shoreline. There's steps going down. So he's asked that he could keep his e-boat on the dock as well. At our meeting, there were only 2 of us there today, and it was 1 yay and 1 abstention, and I so move to pass his request.
So how many boats will he actually have on
Hey,
the
can you
dock?
just hold on and see if we
Oh,
get a
I'm
second,
sorry.
Susie?
I'll
Thanks.
second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve. Any discussion? Susie?
How many boats will he have on his dock?
5.
So it's just 1 over the limit.
It's 1 over the limit, and there's 2 households that have easement across that property.
Was this Whithouse's property originally?
Yes, it was original.
Was it next
Sorry.
door?
Or next
Just
door.
between Edwards and the former Woodhouse property.
Okay.
Any other discussion, questions?
Are there any neighbor objections to this?
Not that I'm aware of.
And they've been made aware of it, I'm assuming.
Yes, I think they have to be by the whole permitting process.
And he asked he originally asked for 6, and he since pulled 1 boat off. So now he's just asking for the sailboat.
And he's got 60 feet.
Yes.
Okay, we don't have the paperwork, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so what are they paying, permit fee and fee for 1 boat? Or
Yes.
Yes.
Over the 4 limit? So
Yes,
it's like
correct.
$120 or something?
Correct.
Okay.
I have one concern, that if this gentleman is able to have 5 boats on his dock, that there will be a number of other White Bear Lake residents who will want to have 5 boats as well.
Well, there's one coming up next.
Is that a problem? Are we setting a precedence?
Is this, there's 2 owners, or is it an owner and an easement holder?
Owner and easement holder.
Okay, so it's different than a single family.
Yeah, it's not a single family.
Yeah, I mean, like, we have at the Dock Association, I mean, we've got a permit for 10 boats.
Right.
So we pay for 6, permit fee for 6 boats, and above that 4
Yeah.
for the people who are in our Dock Association. It sounds like it's kind of the same thing. I mean,
Yeah.
I
But
wouldn't.
with a property owner, a site owner, and an easement, then the easement would have the ability to have a dock?
In my case, it doesn't.
Not if it's
He has access or usage.
Yeah.
The way it was written before. I bought the
I'm sorry,
property.
hey, would you come up and introduce yourself, address, and then speak into the mic? There are people that watch.
Sir.
And so,
My name is Derek Sky. I live at 2717 Lake Avenue.
thanks, Derek.
Long and the short of it, when I bought the property, there was a vacant lot, or the prior owners subdivided the property. I got the house and the lot across the street. The other part of the lot that was vacant, the way they wrote up the whatever, allowed whoever owned the lot, as it turned out, they built a house, whatever. They have access or usage of my dock and usage up to 2 boats.
So who owns all the boats?
My neighbor has 2, which he's allowed, and then I have the other 3.
You have 3, okay.
Yes.
And you had 4 the year before because your permit.
Correct.
From
My permit from the year
2018
before,
was
I
6.
had 6, yeah. So I had owned 4 boats. I own more than that, but I only kept 4 on the lake.
And so just so we don't reiterate, I'm going to be asking to pass this, but with a motion or with a caveat that this one and the next one, that we get some verbiage of, I'd like to see the deed and who is allowed to have a boat there, and I'd like to see the boat licenses that are going to be kept.
Sure. Would that be something I just drop off here, like copies?
Yeah, you could mail them in to the Conservation District. You could email them if you want to, if you've got them electronically. It's just, I think it's safer for us to, then we know that's like, yeah, this is this person, this is this person.
Yeah, if you get a call, I can appreciate it.
These boats are registered to these 2 people. They have easement. Here, we're rock solid on it. We're not.
Agreed.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, I'll work on that.
Okay, thank you, Derek.
Thank you.
That's my motion.
Okay, so there's a motion and a second, and Mike, you seconded it. The motion, it seems like maybe was revised to be approval with some caveats. And did you get all those caveats, Kim?
I did.
Okay, and Mike, are you? Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That passes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Have a good night. I'll work on getting all the information over to you. Thank you.
Then the next one, Fletcher Driscoll. He has the A boats, no change from last year. We haven't got any complaints. I personally think he does this like a service by allowing them to stay there, and it's kind of nice watching them race. So I move to approve.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That passes.
Red Path Ski Course, same as last year. They struck the verbiage to say to be moved every 2 weeks to every 2 to 3 weeks or twice a month. And the LUC committee approved it, and I so move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Any discussion?
So he's supposed to move it every 2 to 3 weeks or twice a month?
Twice a month, but it can't be. It used to say every 2 weeks, but people were counting days. And so sometimes it was difficult for him to exactly go out there 14 days later if it was raining or storming. So it was just, so it'd be like, okay, I'll move it twice a month, but it'll be within 3 weeks, not exactly 14 days. It might take me 20 days or 18 days to move it. And he's pretty good if he gets complaints about taking care of things. Doesn't seem to be a lot of problems out there with the ski course that I've heard of in the last few years. So.
Any other discussion, questions? Okay, motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Can I ask one more question?
Oh, sorry, Susie. Yep.
So can this be set up anywhere on the lake?
Anywhere outside of an ADUA.
Okay.
And they're usually for wind. They're trying to figure out where the prevailing winds are coming from and trying to tuck it in so they can get in smooth water.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I'll stop.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That passes.
The next one is Swell. And thank you. This is a wake surf contest. It's being done as part of Manitou Days. It is, I'm sorry. We'll get you next. I'm sorry, Sean. It's part of Manitou Days. They did it last year. There's a map on here. It's going to be out in front of Ramsey Beach. They have a certain boat that they use, and they ferry people back and forth on jet skis to get back and forth to the competition area. They seem to have all their licensing with the sheriff's deputies and insurance and setup and everything in order. So the LUC committee approved, and I so moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. That passes.
And the next one, again, and I apologize, we have another person who stayed. This is for the Manitou Island swim area, and so instead of having,
And this was another one that was tabled
Yes.
in the past, at a past meeting, and so it's not in the packet. Sorry, Mark.
so last year they had the swim rope buoys, and this year they've, through the sheriff's deputy license, just to have the actual just swim buoys to put out instead of the rope. So we split at the LUC, but I'm going to put it forward to approve the buoys at the Manitou Island swim area.
Well, they're within their essential duo.
Can we just get a second before we start talking about it?
Second.
Okay, we have motion and a second. Sorry, Scott, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I lost my train of thought. It's within their duo, right?
Yes.
I mean, so we really don't need a permit here. I mean, state law gives them that right as long as it's not more than 2,500 square feet.
Right, and they've got their approval with the sheriff department.
Yeah,
So
well,
that's-
I don't even know if we have a reason for us to approve anything.
Alan, can you chime in on that?
I don't have anything in front of me relative to that, but since there's an application and they're asking, I'd just go ahead and approve it. So it's on notice here, and I can't remember what our new policy says, other than they need to get permission for those structures from the local sheriff, which it sounds like they've done.
Yeah, they did that last year, got them to code what the sheriff wanted the buoys to be.
So,
The
be
only
interesting to
difference
see how it
this
works.
year is they've taken the rope away.
And is my understanding that there are 4 buoys involved? Like at a corner, a corner, a corner, a corner, like that?
It's 2 parcels of land.
Yep.
You can come up and speak if I'm speaking incorrectly. There's 2 parcels of land, 2 buoys per parcel.
I think it's on there, 300 feet, right, of beach.
Yeah, 50 by 50, I think. That's what the application says.
Sean Wagner, 2535 Manitou Island. There are 2 parcels. The open sheriff's and DNR permit allows a 50-foot width for an ADUA with a maximum depth of 75 feet, not to exceed 2,500 square feet for a private swim area.
Are the 2 parcels adjoining?
They are.
Okay, so basically you end up with a 100-foot.
The potential, yes.
Yeah, got it. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Additional discussion, questions? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, thank you. That passes?
And then the Dragon Boat Race. This one, I'd like to waive the fee as it is a fundraiser. And basically, it's the milk carton boat race. They've done it before. Again, looks very organized. The LUC approved it, and I so move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That passes.
The last one, we had no representation, Scott Bonin, and he's actually right next to Mr. Sky, who was just here. I would like to see personally, again, the deeds. Because he wasn't here to ask questions, I don't know how many people have deeds to his property and what the boats are. So I hate to do this, but I'd like to table it. We'll send him a letter saying, we'd like to see, what the deeds look like, and then, give us a list of what registered boats are going to be on the dock.
How many boats is he asking?
He's asking for 6.
Is that because he has easements as well?
Apparently, from what I've been told from the past, is they believe there might be, not from him, but from another board member, was that there might be up to, including him, 5 people on that easement, 4 other properties with an easement to that. So I'd like to get that straightened out, read what the easements, see how they read, and then get a list of the boats that are registered boats that are going to be put on it, just to make sure that it's not somebody in Matamidi who's saying they're his neighbor.
Right.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Mark? Okay, we'll move on to Lake Education Committee. Scott?
The only thing we have coming up is the lake ice cleanup on March 7th at 10 a.m. at Bel Air Beach. As many of you who can get out there, we would love to see you.
And it's really a good time, I think. Any questions for Scott? Okay, thank you, Scott. And on to the treasurer's report. Diane?
Treasurer's report for February 2020. We didn't have any income. But I would like to make a motion to approve checks 4624 through 4628.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. That passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. And board council report. Alan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks again, Board, for the summaries. We'll get those published. It'll be very interesting to see, I think, this year how many people take advantage of that. I think pursuant to that, we should ask the DNR and the sheriffs if they do get those to send them our way, because I don't know as it would be protocol usually for them to send it to a local governing agency, because they wouldn't naturally know to do that. So I think it would make sense that we would know how many of them are actually permitted as the year goes by. So I don't know who's sure that would be, but I would guess that by June or July we would know what's out there and where they are. So
okay,
anyway,
Kim,
with that I would stand for questions.
And Kim, can you make those contacts and let them know?
Sure.
Send them a copy of the ordinance like that?
Yeah, I can certainly talk to the sergeant in Washington County since I know him pretty well. I don't know who we'd talk to anymore in Ramsey. I used to. I don't know anymore. So, but we'll figure it out. I'm just saying it'd be a good data point for us to have since we should know that they're out there.
Okay, any questions for Alan? Okay, thank you, Alan. On to announcements. Kim?
Nope, we'll finish the next day or so. Just a sheet, kind of just a summary of what a board member's, I don't even want to call it job, but what
duties,
positions, what it would, duties, yeah. And so then we can send those out along with, because Scott will be leaving soon as well, and now we have another opening with Jeff. So that way we can know what was required.
It's the microphone.
Yeah, microphone, sorry. But otherwise, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Kim. Any questions for Kim? Okay, I'm just going to dovetail here. In your packet, there's a flyer for a talk that's going to be at the White Bear Lake Library tomorrow night at 6:30, free event, talking about the changing climate, changing waters, and obviously climate change is going to have some impact on White Bear Lake. So if you are available to attend, please do. Yes, Diane?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mike, do you know if there's any money available for grants for boat inspection this year?
Is it in the budget? Did we put it in the budget?
For grants?
Oh, for grants? No mention of participating grant for boat inspection.
Okay.
No.
Thanks.
No.
Okay, I will entertain a Mike?
Last month, we were told George St. Germain is retiring from the advisory committee, and we wanted to do something for him. We kicked around different ideas, and there is a bay in the lake named St. Germain's Bay, but there's no signage saying that. And so Mark threw out the idea, because you drive around Minnetonka and other lakes, and they'll have the name of the bay. That if we put up a sign, St. Germain's Bay, but we'd have to get approval from Delwood and maybe the highway department. Maybe you could look into that, Kim, if the board thought that would be appropriate.
And the bay is where exactly? Where?
Echo Street.
Yeah. Right.
By Delwood's area over
Yeah.
there?
Yeah, by the Matamidi, closer to the Matamidi border of Delwood. It's that bay back.
But in
But
Elwood.
only if
in
the board thought it was worthwhile.
I personally, I think it's a great idea and certainly worth looking into. And Kim, can you take that up? Anybody have any strong objections to at least investigating it? No. Well, thanks for raising the idea.
Yeah.
Good idea.
Good job.
Okay, so I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to adjourn. Any questions, comments, discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you all for being here.